everyone, and welcome back to the Black Expat Experience, a live show and podcast highlighting the lived experiences of Black expats around the world. I am Kendall Tyson, your host, licensed therapist, and your fellow Black expat. And today we have another amazing episode in store for you today with another great guest. And I'd like to welcome Jevon to the show. Hi, Jevon.
Hey everyone, nice to meet everyone and nice to meet you, Kendall.
Yes, I'm so glad that Mark was able to connect us. I'm always interested in communicating, sharing stories, listening to really good people. So we'll give him a shout out later, right?
Yeah. That's what I like about the expat community is that it feels like a family, you know?
Yes, very
Yeah.
much so. Well, I want to give people an introduction into you, our new guest. Jevon was born and raised in Barbados, and he's always loved his vibrant culture and the small island that he calls home. Growing up, his parents instilled in him the importance of traveling the world to experience new cultures and to see that there is life beyond the shores of Barbados. The world is your oyster. It's something that his mother would always say, which led him to leaving home at 18 years old to study his bachelors in Jamaica. He wanted to live in a country beyond the Caribbean. Okay, Caribbean or Caribbean?
Caribbean.
Caribbean.
Yeah.
Okay. It really depends on where you're from, right?
Yeah. A lot of Americans say Caribbean. I'm like, but
I'm glad I got it right.
yeah, right the first time.
Right. So, he decided in 2019 that in order to challenge himself some more, that he would move to the furthest place that he could think of, China, right? And as Asian culture was one of the few cultures that he'd not had the opportunity to experience firsthand, this was an amazing opportunity for him to learn and lean into Asian culture, grow as a person. So 3 years later, he still enjoys his time in China and looks forward to all that the future has in store for him, which I am sure is going to be very bright. So I want to welcome you again, Jevon, to the Black Expat Experience. How are you today?
I'm doing fairly good. The weather's amazing in Guangzhou today. So yeah, after this, I'll probably enjoy it.
Yeah, it's sunny right now. It's not too hot.
Yeah.
It was raining terribly the other day. So it's really in that transition into fall, which I'm ready for sure.
Well, unfortunately, we don't really get fall in Guangzhou. We get summer, winter. That's it.
Really? Oh,
Yeah,
man.
and summer is like I would be in my summer wear until maybe November. And
That's
then like
okay.
there's like 1 week where it switches from like 30 degrees into like 10 degrees.
Not even, not much of a transition
No
at all.
transition.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
sounds really similar to Texas where I'm from. Like the weather is just all over the place.
Oof. I last winter was terrible. Being
Yeah,
from the Caribbean. Oof.
yeah. Oh, of course. So, I like to get things started by
Mhm.
asking guests one really important question.
Yeah.
How would you describe yourself to us? Who would you say you are?
I actually used to hate this question in interviews, but I would like to say I extremely jovial. I'm the type of person that I try to see the silver lining in everything. And I
Okay.
think that's super important living in China, you know?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, yeah, and I would consider myself extremely adventurous. There are a lot of things that I like to try. Like I need to try basically everything in life to
Okay.
know if I like it or not like it. Sometimes, okay, I would consider myself to be an introverted extrovert.
Okay. I agree.
So yeah, a lot of the times, like I like socializing, and then there are other weekends where I'm like, all right, I just need to stay in this house and watch Netflix for my
Mm,
entire weekend.
yeah.
Nobody talk to me. But then other times I'm like, guys, let's go out. I want to go to dinner. Let's go for some drinks. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's me. in a nutshell.
Okay, I like that. It sounds like you're into balance. Um,
Yeah,
I really I agree with you with the whole introverted extrovert as I've matured, learned more about myself, what I want, what I need. There are times where I love to be around people. And especially since I work in a field that is centered around helping people in some of the most difficult moments, I've also realized that I need a lot more time to myself to recharge.
for sure.
And living in China, it can be extreme sometimes, especially when it gets cold. So you have to be a lot more cognizant of like your emotions and things like
Yeah,
that, especially as the weather transitions in this
yeah.
country.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, for sure. My first winter here was the first time that I've ever experienced seasonal affection disorder or
Yes,
depression.
yeah. Sad, yeah.
So, I mean, I've traveled in the past during winter, but like it's for a short period of time, you know? When you're living in a place where it's cold, like damp and dark for like 2 to 3 months, you're like,
Mhm. Yeah,
and being again from the Caribbean where it's sunny every single day,
yeah.
it's like I could really sometimes tell that I was, suffering a bit.
Yeah, and I thank you for sharing that because that'll definitely be part of the conversation that we have. Not many
Yeah,
people know about seasonal affective disorder, so
yeah,
I can appreciate that you have some understanding of mental health, mental wellness, and how like your environment really impacts your experiencing life.
yeah,
So I'm so interested in this part of the conversation when we get to that point.
yeah,
But I want you to share with us as I was reading and listening to your bio, clearly you're a risk taker like most
yeah.
people that move abroad. And I want you to share with us what were some of the decisions that impacted what were some of the things that impacted your decision to move abroad, specifically China?
Um, Honestly, like, okay, I'll start by saying this. When I finished my bachelor's in Jamaica, I moved back home for like around 2 or so years. Yeah, when I was 21. And at that time, I got the taste of what being an adult is like.
Yeah,
And to go back home, I was working, I was living the adult life, but still living under my parents' roof.
yeah,
I love them to bits. I still have free reign and stuff at home, but I felt like Barbados was just too small and I felt so limited and a little bit suffocated
yeah,
by how small it was. So I've had friends that were from Barbados and moved to China, and they were always talking about, oh, well, like China's amazing. It's so close to like Thailand, Japan, and Asia was never really a part of the world that I explored.
hmm,
And as I researched it more, I was like, I wonder if I could live in China.
mm,
And I grappled with this idea for maybe 2 or 3 years until I was in my job. I liked my job that I had in Barbados, but I was beginning to get burnout.
mm.
And I was actually talking to my therapist at that time about it. And she was like, I think you need a change of environment. And I was like, are you reading my mind? Because like I'm actually thinking about moving to China. She's like, well, write a pros and cons list about moving to China.
Right.
And I did it. I had way more pros than cons. So I
That's
was
your
like,
therapist. Okay.
yeah, yeah. Thanks. Thank God for her. So yeah, I molded over a bit more, talked to my parents. And honestly, moving to China was the hardest thing I've ever done.
Hmm.
My first panic attack, like severe panic attack
Oh
I
wow.
had was maybe like 2 weeks before I moved there, and I was like, can I really handle it? You know?
Yeah.
So again, I went through this in therapy with my therapist, and like she gave me more like coping mechanisms, and she's like, Jevon, don't worry, I think you'll be fine. I think you just need to make the leap there. And so said, so done. I came here and I've been loving it so far,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah, that's such a tale of bravery and honesty, right?
Yeah.
One, thank you for sharing so transparently that
Sure.
you've worked with a therapist before. I think part of the reason that I created the show is to normalize, Black people of the diaspora seeking mental health support. We need it.
Yeah,
I think everybody needs it,
for
honestly.
sure.
And
For
it's
sure.
nothing to be ashamed about. It's honestly something to scream from the mountaintop, in my
Agreed.
estimation.
It is.
But when I hear what you're sharing, can you recall what was it that what were the thoughts, the feelings that allowed that panic to set in before you kind of came, to your senses?
Honestly, I think the major thing for me was just being, a Black individual in Asia. I wasn't really sure how I would be received,
Yeah,
you know, and also just like various aspects of my life. Yeah, also being queer, like I just didn't know much people like me who were living in China. I've
right,
had Black friends in China, but I didn't have friends who were Black and queer, you
right,
know? So yeah, it was just that for me, like I am the type of person that whenever I make a decision, I need to watch at least like 10 YouTube vlogs about it or like talk to people. So be like, okay, is this for me or is this not for me?
yeah,
So yeah, that those were the two major things for me.
yeah.
There,
I
when I
can
was
see, I can recognize how living at the intersection of these multiple identities um,
yeah,
can bring about a fear of uncertainty,
yeah,
um, and not really knowing, is this going to be the best decision for me? But I
mm,
think as your, story has definitely unfolded, that betting on yourself, leaning into that uncertainty has reaped a lot of benefits.
yeah,
And honestly, the thing that frightens us most is probably the thing that's going to allow us to grow into the best version of ourselves, or at least into that person that we're more meant to be.
yeah.
Um, so I'm really glad that you worked through that very valid fear that you experienced. And I'm wondering, have you been able to develop a community of Black men, Black queer people, to help you to feel at home while you've been here?
Yeah, yeah. So, one of my very first friends that I made in China, he's also Black and queer, and we actually created a WeChat group chat for people in China who are Black and queer.
Okay.
And it started very small, maybe only like 20 people at first
Uh-huh.
for people in Hangzhou, Shanghai, and that has grown into like a group of over 112
Oh,
now,
wow.
all over China, Beijing, Guangzhou, Shenzhen, Hangzhou, Shanghai, Suzhou. Yeah,
Wow.
so yeah, I am pretty proud of how that has grown and
Yeah.
just to meet amazing people like Mark, for example.
Yeah.
I met him through this group chat, you
Yeah.
know?
I don't even
So
remember how I met Mark. I think he was interviewing me for
yeah,
this journal that I had created. He was doing a profile, and we've been friends ever since. So
yeah.
we'll
He's an
definitely.
amazing individual.
He is, and and I've interviewed him too. Like he's been on the show. He was
Yeah,
one of
yeah,
the
I
earlier
watched it.
guests.
Yeah,
And we'll definitely get into that aspect of
yeah,
like the community building throughout the interview. So hold on to that.
yeah. Okay.
I want you to think about, since you've been here, what
Mhm.
have been some of the most impactful pursuits that you've undertaken since you've been abroad, or at least in China?
Impactful pursuits. I don't know. I think I have a lot, honestly. The group chat for one
Right.
is one of the most impactful things I would say, especially for our community. Like just last week, um, I met up with a couple of us that live in Guangzhou and are new to Guangzhou and new to China on a
Mhm.
whole, you know. So yeah, and they were like, oh yeah, like I heard about this group chat through one of my friends, but like I didn't know like how to really access it. So yeah, like at least like that word is out there that there's a safe space for us here, you know, because not everybody in China has the same experience that I would have had.
Mm, that's true.
So they need like a community to like lean on and to really like sometimes just vent, you know,
Mhm.
to people who would really understand what they're going through.
Yeah.
So I think that's a major one. I can't think of any right now, actually.
That's
Am I?
fine. That might actually be it. So are you considering like going to school here? Are you furthering your education? Are you furthering your
Um,
life?
I initially came here for my master's. I
Okay.
came here for my master's in 2019. So, and I graduated last year.
Congratulations.
Um, Thank you. So now I'm working in the mobile game industry. And yeah, honestly, that is another pursuit that I would say that I struggled a lot looking for a job in China and I don't speak Chinese is that was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my
Yeah.
entire life. But I was lucky enough to find a job and to find a company that really loves me for who I am. Like I can be my full self
That's
there. Yeah.
amazing. That's
So
amazing. So when
yeah.
so when you were able to get through that process, land at a company that allows you total authenticity,
Yeah.
acceptance, how did you have to prepare yourself to like really fully embrace the opportunity that you were given?
I actually think I'm still embracing it at the
Okay.
moment because I've only been with this company for 9 months.
Okay.
Yeah. So I moved from Xiamen to Guangzhou. It was pretty rocky in the beginning, like sorting out visa issues, stuff like that. Really getting acclimatized to the city and stuff like that. So I now think I am only now recently in a place where I can like breathe and be
Hmm.
like, I can settle into my job, my life, my social life, my friends, etc. And things I had to do to prepare to accept that. I'm a person that I live in my head a lot, so I have to journal things out.
Yes.
So that really helped me in terms of like looking at myself from like an outward perspective. I don't know if
More
that makes sense.
observing. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was one of the major things I had to do to accept where I am at the moment. And as I said, I'm still living through it right now, I
Yeah.
think.
Well,
So
what's something that you notice that keeps coming up for you as you're wading through this process of acceptance? What do you notice is a consistent theme that continues to rear its, head?
I think the thinking process of like, is this actually real? Or am I actually worthy of all of
Oh,
this?
oh
For
wow.
some reason, I don't know why it's like, this seems too good to be true. What's the catch?
Now don't go scanning for threats and stuff and mess it up.
Yeah, no, 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 no. But like, I just mean like, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Like,
I know
yeah,
what
for
you're
me,
saying
that just
though.
keeps coming up that like, especially in China,
Yeah.
sometimes if things are going too good, like for such a long time, you're like, what's up?
Right. We have
So
a tendency, as I would imagine, as people that are not strangers to struggle, right?
yeah,
Either created on our own or not. And
yeah,
it can feel unreal when
yeah,
a situation that you found yourself in really is going smoothly
yeah,
when you're so used to really having to fight and to battle and to overthink and to scan be hyper vigilant, honestly, always
Yes,
looking for the
yes.
issue so that you can feel prepared to handle it. It
Yeah,
feels a bit unsettling, I would imagine.
yeah.
It seems like you're
And
describing when it's like, okay, this doesn't feel familiar.
yeah.
But you said something
And
really key,
oh,
worthiness.
sorry. Yeah, sorry. Like I just and also like I think it's because this is I was telling Mark the other day actually. This is the most stable I've been since living in
Mm,
China, you know?
mm,
Like honestly, me doing masters, extremely unstable
hmm.
because fun fact, I was actually stuck in Wuhan during the initial months of the
Oh my
virus.
God. Oh my
Then
God.
I had to deal with that. I had to deal with trying to get out of Wuhan to go back to
Yeah,
Xiamen. I had to deal with doing my master's at this time, like during
yeah.
all of this.
Wow.
Then also moved back to Xiamen. All my friends are gone because
Mm,
everybody went home during the
yeah.
virus. I have to make new friends. I have to acclimatize to living in Xiamen, online school, because all of my classes are online now. Because it's my degree was only for international students.
Hmm.
So yeah, everything had to be online. And then as soon as I got like a little bit stable, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm graduating next month. I have to look for a job. My visa expires.
Yeah.
So then I had to do that. Found this job in Guangzhou, moved to Guangzhou. I have to like make new friends now. I have to like get comfortable again. And yeah, now honestly, I'd probably say from April, I have been like pretty stable. So I'm like,
Well, I'm happy for you, right? It sounds as if that's a very harrowing experience, something that I hope
yeah,
that you're able to write about because your situation will probably definitely unlock an aspect of healing and triumph for somebody else. And
yeah,
so it kind of, I kind of better understand how you're feeling a little bit like uneasy with, okay,
yeah,
does this really happen?
yeah,
Are things really
yeah,
working out? Like I just,
yeah,
ran this gauntlet of experiences that you did bring upon yourself. But the key is you were able to survive them.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so I do these things called expat affirmations. And this is so
Mhm.
apropos, the one that I just shared on the social media. The affirmation for this week is, let me make sure I can get it right, is I choose to, I'm gonna mess it up. So let me find it. It is so fitting. It is, I choose to embrace the power and autonomy that survivorship has granted me.
That's a good one, honestly.
What do you feel when you hear that?
Like sometimes it honestly it comforts me because it's like I think I kind of downplay my survival skills. And when I really look back at how much I have been through, I'm like, did I
Yeah,
really go through that? I can't believe it, you
yeah,
know?
yeah,
Like now when I think back about like living in Wuhan during these 3 months, nobody knew anything about coronavirus. We don't know if it's like spreading in the air and stuff
yeah,
like that. And I'm like, wow, I really cannot believe I survived that.
yeah,
Never in a million years would I think that I would be placed in a situation like that.
yeah. But you were, and you survived it. So,
Yeah.
how do you shift from, I would have never thought this to, but I did. And these are the things that I learned about myself. And these are the skills that I acquired that I can take into this more settled version of my life. What does
Mhm.
that look like?
Journaling again. Like I have an entire journal about my days in Wuhan.
Well, you
Then
got
I
a
have
book.
another journal. Yeah. And then I have another journal about like acclimatizing to Xiamen and my life post Wuhan.
Yeah.
Then I have another journal about me living in Guangzhou and moving in Guangzhou. So like I have like different volumes
Right.
of
Like
my
different
journal.
phases.
yeah, where really like just examine everything
Yeah.
and try to really, honestly, I go really hard on myself.
Mm,
So I really try to like remind myself that, you survived XYZ.
mm-hmm.
Because when you think about it, it's completely different than when you like write it out and you actually see for yourself, you
Mm-hmm.
know? That for me is very therapeutic. And that is how I process and rationalize and I make the shift easier.
Yeah. It sounds like you're learning to be a bit more accepting, or maybe acceptance is in this phase of you being settled, leaning
Yeah.
into the acceptance of, yes, it's possible for you to have gone through so much and be at a place where you're not having to endure, where you can
Yeah.
live, where you can thrive,
Yeah.
where you can grow
Yeah.
and be happy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think especially like us as Black people, like, I think just like society kind of teaches us that, everything has to be a struggle. Everything
Oh,
has to be, we have to be hustling 24/7. We have to be, like we would have seen our grandparents like struggling in their
yeah,
marriages, like, struggling financially.
yeah,
Like we've never really had the time to just do like proper self-care and self-love, I think.
yeah.
So learning that has been an amazing experience for me.
I'm happy for you. That honestly leads me into this question that I have is when you think about all of that, giving yourself the gift of moving abroad, how has that decision to become, an expat changed your life? And how do you think making that decision has shifted your perspective and your priorities?
Um, I think while living in Barbados, I pretty much only hung out with like a certain set of people, you know. So, and nothing's necessarily wrong with that, like coming from Barbados and that's all you know. But moving to China and being an expat, I have some friends that have children that are my age, you know.
Yes.
So I get a lot of different perspectives when it comes to like life and people's experiences. And I'm a type of person where I like to sit and listen to other people's experiences. Like, what can I personally learn from this? You
Yeah.
know? So, yeah, that has been a major thing for me. Like, just being able to expand my circle. Um, yeah, meeting people from countries that I've only ever like seen on a map and heard of
Yeah.
like once, you
Yeah.
know? And really get to hear what life is like for them in their
Yeah.
country. Yeah, that for me has been an important thing. And also, I think I have grown exponentially as an expat. Becoming an expat at 23, I think, has kind of made me mature a bit more
Hmm.
in comparison to some of my peers.
Yeah.
So, yeah, those are
Yeah.
the major things I see for myself. Yeah.
I appreciate that. It's an exercise in independence and self
Yeah.
reliance for sure, right?
Definitely.
your resolve will be tested, especially living in China. Your resolve
And
will
it's
be tested.
and especially coming from an island where like if I encounter anything like, with a bank, with my bank or like, like just different bureaucratic stuff,
Mhm.
mostly everybody in Barbados knows everyone. So I could just like pick up the phone and be like, yeah, this is what's going on with my bank account. Can you help me? Blah, blah,
Yeah,
blah. In China, no. I need to go to the bank myself
and be there for a few hours,
and be there for a few hours. Yeah.
and bring all of your important paperwork, because they want to
Yeah.
check it all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I have learned how to definitely be not of my own will. My
Yes,
mother is proud.
I'm sure she is. Like, I don't know. I think just moving here has really expanded my appreciation for my ability to, what would I say? Lean into the things that matter most to me
Yeah. Oh,
without
yeah.
like the distraction of other people's opinions
Oh,
and
yeah.
fears. I've really like coming here, there's a sense of stillness where you have to identify what type of life do I want to have?
Exactly. Exactly. And especially as an expat where, every city has their different circles of expats where,
Right.
no offense to English teachers, they're the alcoholic English teachers that are
Ooh,
in bars
yeah.
every single night.
Yes.
And there's like the pretentious expats. Then there's like, like all these different circles. And it's like, where do I fit in?
Yeah.
You know? But honestly, I think I've been lucky to be surrounded with people who just don't care about these superficial stuff, you
Yeah.
know? So,
So y'all been able
yeah.
to create your own type of community.
Yes, for sure, 100%. And if like any of us, especially with the Black queer, if any of us is in a new city, we ask in a group chat, hey, what is there to do? Does anybody want to hang out, etc. And I really do love that.
Yeah. Well, tell us more about, because it sounds as if, creating this, chat, this community, this digital space, tangible space has been, I would imagine, a saving grace
Oh yeah.
and a bit of a chosen family, honestly. Um, Share with us more like the mission of, I don't know if I want to say organization or I don't know the appropriate term because I would say that's kind of formal and stuffy.
Collective.
Um,
We can just say collective, I guess.
Collective, we'll go, yes,
Yeah.
collective.
It's just as I said before, just to create a safe space for everyone and to make sure everybody knows that they are loved. Like
Yeah.
I haven't personally met Mark in person, but the bond that we have,
Yeah.
it's like I feel as if I haven't really experienced that a lot
Mhm.
in my life. And to have this kind of bond with somebody I haven't physically met,
Yeah.
it's amazing.
Yeah.
So I think like we honestly just created this so that like other people can network and find other people like them, and to know that you're not alone
Yeah.
in this vast country we call China. So
Yes, it's ridiculously huge. I wonder when you think
yeah.
about the mental health implications of, well, before I even get into that, how do you believe you felt pre-collective and post-collective?
Hmm. Pre-collective, I did feel as if I was like a little bit alone and lonely, and nobody really understands what I'm going through. Um, yeah, and post-collective, I definitely feel the family, like the chosen family aspect of it. Like, for example, the Chinese New Year that just passed, everybody was kind of sad that, we didn't get to go home for Christmas.
Yeah.
Chinese New Year is going to be in like a long holiday. Other people are traveling in China. And it was like, you know what? I told some other friends, let's just go to Shanghai for Chinese New Year. And that for me was super fulfilling to like be with a lot of people from the group. We were just with each other for the entire holiday so that nobody feels lonely.
Yeah.
Nobody really feels that pang of like homesickness. So yeah, if I stayed in Guangzhou, I know I would have just been in my bed every single day.
Yeah.
So I forced myself to like go out and yeah, just be with other people and be with my chosen family.
Yeah. I can hear how saving that
It is.
is, right? To have created this connection of individuals in different cities, whether you get to see them or not, they're still connections there, and people know that if they need support, the support is there. So I wonder,
Yeah.
when you think about the advancement of the collective that you've created, the chosen family, that y'all been able to curate, what would you hope to be like? How would you like it to grow? Like, what would you like to expand in this space?
Honestly, I would the other admins and I were actually talking about this the other day, where we would like to see maybe monthly activities in like different cities,
Mm,
where like so Hangzhou, Shanghai, Guangzhou, Shenzhen, those are like our biggest cities in the group right now,
mhm,
where most of the people are from. So just a monthly activity with like people in these cities. And even if I want to like travel to like say Hangzhou to be with them for their event, I can do that. And other people
mhm,
in the group can do that as well. And just also because I won't be in China forever, but
mhm,
I really hope that this kind of like legacy, I guess I can say, will be carried on long gone after I'm here, you know?
mhm.
So yeah, yeah, I would really like to see more social activities, more. I know that Mark is doing his blog right
Right,
now, Peking Duck,
right.
and he really does ask a lot of us for our opinions about his pieces. Sometimes we even voice our opinions in some of his pieces,
Mhm.
and yeah, maybe even a podcast. We were talking about that the other day. I think that would be good.
I mean, I'm just listening to you, and I am blessed with the gift of ideas. And I can envision a lot when it comes to expanding the mission, expanding the reach. So is it just Black and queer people living in Asia, or is is a collective open to other ethnicities, nationalities, or is it a protected space for Black people of the diaspora?
Mostly Black people of the diaspora. We
Okay,
even have a couple of people that I identify as Afro, Latino, Latina.
right. They still Black. Yeah.
Um, yeah, exactly. So yeah, mostly people of the diaspora right now, and even we still have a huge percentage of people who are still from Africa actually.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
and a lot of some of our members have moved to other countries and they're still in the group.
Yeah. And
So
that's what I was thinking about, is how do you create like your satellites, right? To bring in
yeah,
more people into the fold, bring in a greater sense of safety. Um,
yeah.
I'm imagining, if you were to pitch to other individuals, in the world, why they should consider to join your collaborative collective, um, focused on, Black queer people, safety, community. What would you say?
Hmm. For them to join our group,
Yeah, what would you say?
honestly, just you're not alone. Like in this community, we often share what we're going through. Like as living so far from home, you really need a shoulder to lean on,
Yeah.
and especially people that really know what you're going through firsthand. So yeah, like before I moved to China, I could not find any content about being Black and queer in
Mm,
China.
mhm,
Not even really Japan or any other Asian countries.
mhm,
So I do think we're sitting on a gold mine of
mhm,
knowledge and
mhm,
experiences.
mhm.
So yeah, yeah, I really do think there's a lot of potential. Now I'm thinking about all the potential
I
for the
mean,
group.
I'm so glad we brought this up in the conversation, because there's so much there,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah,
you
yeah.
optimize people's skills. Hey, who's good at the journaling part, the photography, the video, whatever.
Yeah.
And oh my goodness, I get goosebumps because I can see that it can be something really big, to
Yeah. Yeah.
really globally let people see that we deserve to take up space, right? You
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
have very varied and important lived experiences that are just as impactful as the next person.
Yeah.
And you have the autonomy to tell your story as opposed to having your story be told by someone
Oh,
else.
yeah. 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 Agreed. Agreed.
So I look
Agreed.
forward to what it's going to be.
Same. 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 No, I'm thinking like, oh,
Oh my God, like this is literally what I
thank
do
you for
to
bringing it up.
everybody. I'm always like,
No,
somebody
no,
need to do
really.
that.
Thank you for bringing it up. Like, I do think there is a lot of potential here, honestly.
Yeah,
Honestly.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
Hmm.
excited. I'm excited.
Same.
Listen, if
Same.
y'all need somebody to talk about mental health, hit me up. Mark already know. Okay.
For sure.
Um, and so talking about mental health, you,
Hmm.
you you mentioned earlier that you, before leaving, conferred with your therapist, which I think is
Yeah.
amazing. When you think about mental health, how would
Hmm.
you define mental health in your own words?
For me, mental health, in my opinion, is way more important. Well, it's a little bit more important than your physical health because our brains really do run how we see this world,
Mm-hmm.
how we feel, how we experience this world. We know that like physical health is important for sure, but like say, if I break my arm, I can get a cast. And that doesn't really change the way I see the world, you know?
Yeah.
So I do think that us as Black people, we need to pay more attention to our mental health because our brains are super important. And this is how we really do like just see this world. And a lot of times we don't really pay much attention to our mental health. And I think that is a major contribution to a lot of, how do I word this correctly? A lot of the problems that we sometimes face. If I'm not including like, like obviously like social
Right.
externalities and stuff like that, but it's just things as simple as maybe like, I don't know. I can't really encapsulate what's going on in my head right now. um, but yeah, no, for me, mental health is super important because I don't want to be a prisoner of my own mind.
Mm,
You know,
I love that. I love that.
I I don't want that my mind is controlling me rather than I control my mind, you
Right.
know?
So then I want to ask you this.
Hmm.
When you think about what you need, oftentimes we do frame things in the vein of, I don't want this to happen, right? Like the
Hmm.
absence of something. I don't want to be
Yeah.
fearful, or I don't want to be unhealthy. And one thing that's going to assist and help is, how do you reframe your thinking to, when you're in that mindset of, I don't want this, noticing and shifting to, but I want this. like the presence of something, right? Because whatever we give energy to is the thing that's going to amplify. So
Agreed.
inadvertently, if we're constantly thinking about what we don't want, what we don't want, what we don't want, we're still allowing that thing to grow. So how
Yeah.
do we shift
Yeah.
that, and it's like, okay, yeah, that's not necessarily what I want, but I do want this. I want peace. I want happiness.
Yeah.
I want support.
Yeah.
What does that process look like for you in the confines of living abroad?
Just kind of reminding myself that for me, honestly, reminding myself that I am worthy of all these things.
Yes, you are.
Because growing up, like therapists in Barbados are like, that's a white people thing. That's what people would say, or there's a church. You're not depressed. You just need to pray, you
Ooh,
know?
child, listen, I think that's every Black person in every household all over the world.
Yeah. Yeah. So, for me, it's just reminding myself that I am worthy of like peace. And I try to do preventative measures in terms of like more self-care, more journaling, more going easy on myself, more being cognizant of what I am thinking and even just like what I allow in my space, rather than me thinking I'm living in fear of, oh my God, I don't want to have a panic attack. No, like as you said, if I keep thinking about I don't want to have a panic attack,
It
then
happens.
it happens,
Yeah.
So I would rather just be more living in a space of even if some days I don't want to do my self-care, I'm gonna do it. I
Yeah.
work out more. I journal more. I call my parents more. My mother loves it. My dad does not. He's like, "You're calling me so much." I'm like, "Yeah, I miss you."
Right.
But yeah, yeah, that for me is just yeah. And also just talking with my brother who is also an expat in Toronto.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I think Mark did tell me
yeah.
that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But like some things about living in China, he doesn't really understand.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yo, I can
but
imagine in
also
Toronto was vastly different living in China.
vastly, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, and also just talking to people like Mark, like and I have some other confidants that are also Black and queer,
Mhm.
and yeah, so yeah, just being like, hey, I actually think X, Y, like I might be a little bit, I can see down the road that I might suffer from XYZ.
Mhm.
Yeah, like let's talk about it,
Yeah.
So
I I I
yeah.
I I like that, right? We
Mhm.
know ourselves, especially if we
Yeah.
are open to being vulnerable. Because I was just about to ask you this question, which I will, but we know when things feel different, when we're reacting differently to situations or our environment, and if we're kind of going downhill. And I
Yeah.
really appreciate what you just said. I feel like something's happening and I need to discuss it, as opposed to
Yeah.
time has gone by and it's made it that much more challenging to kind of dig yourself out of that quicksand, which is one of
Yeah.
the things that makes, struggling with mental health hard, is the withdrawal and the
Yeah.
fear of dot, 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 right? So being preventative
Yeah.
is really
Yeah.
vital, but it's key to also cultivate a community that you feel safe and seen,
To discuss.
right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. For sure. Because again, uh, um growing up Black, like we don't really pay that much attention to mental health, you
Hmm.
know? Like it's a last resort.
Yeah.
Um, and I actually had my first therapist at 16 or
Oh,
18, I
wow.
can't remember. Yeah. And I remember having the discussion with my parents, and they're like, "But I don't know. I don't know why you need a therapist." I'm like, "Yeah, no, I just like the same way how you go to a doctor for your physical health, I'm going to a therapist for my mental health. Like, I really think there's some things I need to work on.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's
So,
a high
yeah.
level of self-awareness as a teen, as a young teen, a Black male. And I would imagine that at that point you were aware of your sexuality at
Oh,
16.
yeah.
So how do you when you at this age that you are, this lived experience that you've acquired, and you look back at your 16-year-old self, what do you think it took, for you to be so open and transparent about the fact that you needed help?
That's actually a pretty loaded question. When I look back at my 16 to like 18-year-old self, I see somebody that's very fearful.
Mm,
Um, and I think a lot of this fear was instilled by religion, you
mm,
know?
mm.
And it wasn't until I really like unpacked that I was able to be like, hmm, maybe it's not like these, I don't know, like maybe it's not my spiritual afflictions that I am maybe like, like experiencing depression or stuff like that. Maybe it's physical. It's not spiritual, you know? So that took a lot of work to unpack, but I think it wasn't until I got to that space that I was able to be free. And also, I must say, I did grow up with friends who were open about their mental health struggles around this age.
Okay.
And I wouldn't say anything, but like I would just sit and think, and I was like,
Which
a
is
lot of their symptoms I'm experiencing too.
yeah,
So,
yeah. That's the
yeah.
power of sharing stories is
Yes,
you don't even have to be
exactly.
asked a direct question to
Yeah.
spot something in somebody else. Um,
Yeah.
I thank you for, really sharing that.
Okay.
Like I love God, right? And grew up as a Christian. And I also know, I think that there's such a heavy emphasis on explaining away certain
Yeah.
things that we as Black people experience that are mental health struggles. And when we tend to experience things as a lot of times as physical symptoms,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh pain in the body, the headaches, the tummy aches, the withdrawal, the tension, gnawing of the teeth, right? That ain't those anxious symptoms, um, feeling like a lack of connection. And sometimes I think it's really harmful that instead of, like we always say, God equips people with the skills to help you, because they do that with medical doctors. And
Exactly.
if we're hungry, there's a chef that is very skilled to make us food to eat.
Yeah.
Same thing applies to clinicians that deal with people's
Exactly.
psychological health. And I keep wondering, like, what's the barrier? Why can't these things collaborate, right? The mental health and spirituality, which they do, that's part of the wheel of wellness, is having a spiritual practice, something
Agree. Yeah.
believing in something bigger than yourself, not necessarily organized religion, because religion is caused,
Yeah.
right?
Because that's different. Yeah. Yeah.
Very different. So I hope that our community begins to embrace that more, understanding that
Same.
you can have a therapist and love the Lord too, or whoever
Ex-
you serve. uh,
Yeah.
Let me ask you, when you think of, if you were standing in front of a group of parents that needed tips or advice on how to connect with their children that might be struggling, or how to listen, be open to, what are a few pieces of things that you would say when you think back about the experience that you have with your parents? What would you tell parents that do have kids that can benefit from seeking outside the family help?
I think One, well, let me preface this by saying, both of my parents are still married,
Mhm,
grew up with both of them. My dad has a more like authoritarian like style of parenting,
mhm,
whereas my mom is more of a let's talk,
mhm.
some I can tell something is wrong.
Yeah,
So I think having that, having my mom and just being able to go to her and be like, hey, I don't think something is right. Can we do something about it? Having that open door with my mom definitely worked.
yeah,
And I needed that,
yeah,
to be honest. If I had both parents that were authoritarian, I would have just lived in my head, suffered silently,
yeah,
not say anything, you
yeah,
know? I think a lot of Black parents, like they've in the Black community, we've passed down the tradition of children should be seen and not heard. And that is extremely harmful,
it's very
you
hard,
know?
and it strips away autonomy in your voice.
Exactly. Exactly. So I think just listening to your child and making sure that they're comfortable enough to talk to you is important. And also just recognizing the warning signs, you know?
Mm.
I was an extremely, oh my God, I'm only now unpacking this. I was an extremely like polite
Mhm.
kid, grade A student,
Perfectionist.
extracurriculars, etc. Then when I hit like 13, 14, it just completely switched.
Mm,
And my parents could not understand why. And I think maybe I was going through that internal struggle. I was lashing out.
mm,
And I think my mom saw that. She's like, maybe he's just struggling with something, but I don't know what
mm,
it is.
mm.
And a lot of times parents, when their children are lashing out, they're like, oh, you're hanging out with the wrong crowd. Yes, that might be true, but why is your child hanging out with the wrong crowd? What are
Exactly.
they craving? So when your children are doing things, try to go to the root cause of it.
Mm,
Why are you doing this? You know?
yeah,
So yeah, those are the two major things for me that I
that
would tell parents.
very important, right? There's always a why behind the what.
Yeah,
All behavior is purposeful, and
yeah,
it takes people to get out of denial
yeah,
and look at what's happening. Like even
yeah,
be objective. Your child's behavior has gone complete 180. Something
yeah,
happened. You may
yeah,
not
yeah,
know what the something is. You may not even agree with what the something
yeah,
is, but the reality is that your child or family member is struggling. And so some
listen.
ways that I encourage people to fact find or probe is reduce the use of why, first of all, right? Because that feels like
Yeah,
interrogation. But I encourage them to be a bit more curious, right? So I wonder this. I mean, I notice, right? I notice that when we have these conversations, you're silent, or I notice that you seem upset or angry a lot, which is an easier way to display I'm sad or
yeah,
I'm embarrassed or I'm anxious. Anger is widely accepted, especially among men. Um,
exactly. Yeah,
and really just getting curious in a compassionate way. Because if you don't create environments of safety, no, your child or your family member or the one you care for has nowhere to be open and honest if they don't feel a safe space to do that. And that's kind of what I hear that you're
yeah.
sharing,
Oh yeah, for
which I
sure.
think
Like
is
having
really
a safe space in your own home
yes.
is important, you know?
Yeah, especially as Black people, we have a lot of other things to contend with. Home shouldn't
Yeah.
home. I don't like to say should or shouldn't because sometimes it just is, right? I would hope that home is a place that you have peace and you have
It, sh-
acceptance.
it
Um,
should be a sanctuary, you know?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Love.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
but we have so many other things external that happen in our lives that kind of make that challenging sometimes. But
Yeah,
let me ask
definitely.
you, when you think
Mhm.
of your journey, what role do you believe vulnerability played in your healing process?
I think for me, sharing and being vulnerable is extremely therapeutic
Mm,
because as men, like, and as black men, we grow up to be we're taught to not really express ourselves and
yeah,
to keep everything bottled in,
yeah.
you know. Um, and me being vulnerable has shown me that I'm not alone in my struggles with some things, you know. And two, just help me build a sense of community with people that I can trust, that I know are also going through similar things, you know? So, yeah, like, I don't want to be burdened and with all of my emotional baggage and trauma. And I have been in that place before, and I don't want to be that heavy again.
Yeah,
I don't. I
yeah.
deserve to live a fairly like free, like lightweight life. So,
I
no.
think you deserve to live whatever type of life that you want, and you
Yeah.
get to put in action what that looks like,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Thank you.
So
Yeah.
how do you believe, I don't even know if I asked this already. How do you believe like making the leap to move abroad has impacted your mental health?
I think it has definitely shown me how resilient I am, you
Mm,
know. And again, if the me pre-move thought about me being stuck in Wuhan during coronavirus,
you wouldn't go
I
there.
would have thought I would have lost my mind,
Yeah.
you know? It wasn't until I was in the situation where it's like, all right, I can look at this objectively. I know this is not going to last forever. These are some key things that I need to do. I need to express myself with my parents at home, how I'm really feeling. Don't bottle it all up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I definitely think moving abroad has taught me how resilient I am, and just also that nothing lasts forever.
Mm,
The feeling does pass. Um, yeah, like, I think every single year, my seasonal affection, like this disorder, it does get a little bit better and better and better,
mhm.
because I can think back to, okay, last year it wasn't that bad in comparison to the year before. You know, like, yeah, you had a tough winter, but think about all the fun memories you're gonna make in spring. In summer, Jevon, you're gonna be complaining it's too hot and you need it to be winter. So that really helped with
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Kind of like you said, helping to stabilize yourself by realizing this is temporary, and
yeah,
you can do anything, literally almost
exactly,
anything if it's temporary. But I would
exactly.
I would also imagine that your ability to cope and thrive through challenging situations has intensified. Like you have learned more about what you need in these more difficult moments to kind of stabilize yourself when things are
Yeah,
challenging. And so that's, I would
yeah,
imagine, is what kind of makes it easier to manage over time because you're learning what you need. And you're giving yourself
yeah.
that. So this, leads me to a question. What do you need for healing? And what does healing look like for you?
Actually, I don't know. Um, healing for me looks healing for me, I think, is actually pretty. I don't know. The word I can come up with is a little bit traumatic sometimes. Because like I think it's ugly. Healing is ugly if I'm being honest. You know, there are
Mhm.
times you're going to cry. There are times that you're gonna feel like I don't want to go to work. There are times where I notice that I don't want to journal, but when I do journal, I might unpack something that I might have been dealing with subconsciously. Um, yeah, I don't really call home as frequently as I should. I'm more in my head, definitely. But then I have to like collect myself and like compose myself and be like, again, this is not forever. You're going through something. We need to deal with this right now. Let's deal with it.
I hear that.
So
I like how you said that for you it's an ugly process.
it
And
is.
I concur, right? Healing is a lot of breaking down, can be a lot of breaking down in order to rebuild, because
Yeah,
you're not healed on a dysfunctional or a cracked foundation. Sometimes you
exactly.
have to completely demolish that foundation of what I've been taught, how I've been
Yeah.
told to feel, who I've been told I am, not
Mhm.
being able to
Yeah.
express myself, not being able to live authentically, not loving myself, breaking that foundation of all of these weights in order to really clear the slate and identify, all right, so I'm no longer bound by these things. So what does it now look like to rebuild, like brick by brick, um,
Yeah.
this sturdier version, healthier version, more authentic version of myself? And that
Yeah.
is a scary process.
Extremely. Because then sometimes only like I know I'm gonna be a better person at the end of it, but it's like I don't know. Like I feel as if I don't know that person yet. You know?
Exactly, but
So
that's the key. Because you
yeah.
don't, right? We know who we're told we're supposed to be. We know
Yeah.
who society says that as a Black woman at 40, this is what you're supposed to have accumulated, have in your life. And it is a lot of work to silence that and unpack those things. So, what you just said
Yeah.
is really honest. It's like, I don't know who that person is. So, you literally get to draw the tapestry as you go along.
Yeah. 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 For sure. For sure. Oof.
That's a lot of self awareness. And sometimes what we realize we may not necessarily like.
Yeah. I think and it has definitely taken a lot for me to get here, but with the help of my therapist,
Listen,
I
say it
do
loud,
think
child. Say it loud.
I do think that I was able to, like just take a step back from myself.
Yeah,
Because I can be a little bit dramatic when it comes to myself. So just take a step back and be like, what's really going on here? So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Well, let me ask you this. When you think about
Mhm.
non-negotiables for your life, things that you absolutely have to have as you continue to mature and thrive, what would some of those things be?
For me, I don't like people that are always Debbie Downers, and finding the bad in everything. I just can't tolerate it, and I don't have the time for it anymore.
Mhm.
Yeah, that for me is a major one. Like, we're not here for an extremely long time, you know, and life is fickle. So sometimes just stop, get out of your head. Not everybody's trying to attack you. Like, there are bigger problems in the world. You'll be fine. And especially as an expat, you'll be fine.
Mm,
um, and also other non-negotiables are people that aren't grounded and people that aren't self-aware.
mm.
Well, self-awareness is we can't really necessarily put in the definition on it, but I I personally just don't, us as expats, sometimes we run into other people of other races, and sometimes they just don't know what they're doing is wrong. Do you get what I'm trying to be
Mhm.
politically correct?
You don't have to be, just be honest.
Yeah,
They're
especially when it
harmful. They
comes
do
to,
harmful things. They say harmful things. They say racist
they
shit.
say harmful things,
Yeah.
they have that colonizer attitude.
Yes.
I don't like it.
Yeah.
That for me is a big no. At the end of the day, we're guests in
Mhm.
a country. This is not 1662. Calm down, Christopher Columbus. You
Listen.
know. So yeah, that for me is a big no. And just people, I just need people to be their authentic self. I'm pretty intuitive, so I can tell generally when people are putting on a show, and I don't like that.
Mm,
So uh, yeah.
okay, I get that. Well, tell me, what are you most proud of about this decision that you've made to live the expat life?
How far I've grown.
Mm,
Like when I look at, I've only been here for 3 years, and I feel like I have learned so much. I've experienced so much. I have met like so much people. Um, yeah, like I feel, and I also feel like as an expat, it's an easier chance to kind of just like reinvent yourself and just like kind of break down those societal norms that you learned growing up and
mhm.
just get in touch with yourself,
Yeah, I agree
you
with that.
know? So that, I think that is one of the most like important um things that I would have accumulated in my expat experience. And honestly, I love it. And I'm scared of not being an expat again if I ever move back to Barbados.
That's one of the things that I said. Like, I know I'm not going to be in China forever. I'll probably have another 2 years and then matriculate
Yeah,
back to the United States temporarily. But there's just so
yeah,
much freedom, and being an expat, there's so much connection to people from all over the world, and um, like you said, I don't think that it's something that I can give up, right? Whenever I go home, I'm like 2 weeks, I'm ready to like hop on a plane. I need to go somewhere. I need to be on the beach. I need to be sightseeing. I
yeah,
can't be stuck in
yeah,
Texas. So
yeah, yeah,
it's very difficult to repatriate.
yeah.
That it's a
The
complete
reverse
mindset.
culture shock.
Yes, yeah, I work with lots
The
of people
reverse-
that struggle with repatriation, because
Yeah,
you've grown into a different version of yourself
yeah.
when you do move abroad. Um, and then it's like, how do I take this developed, this independent person and reintegrate them into this society that I've not had to live in for such a long time?
Personal time. Yeah, yeah. Oh, I don't want to think about it.
And you don't have to, right? Stay
Yeah,
present focused,
I know.
but prepare,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah,
Because I,
for
I would
sure.
imagine that one of the most important lessons that making the decision to move abroad, because it is a decision, nobody made you do it, right? It was a
Yeah,
choice. So making
exactly.
the
Yeah,
choice, one of the things that it's taught you is that you have freedom to decide.
yeah,
And
yeah.
you really have to have a good sense of who you are and what you want in your life, which may be agreed upon by people that you love, or it may not. But it's really, how do you align your decision with the type of life that you want to live that's going to make you happiest and healthiest?
Um, honestly, for me, I think I was lucky to have the support of my parents.
That's good.
Initially, my mom was like, China's so far. You're gonna be 12 hours, like 12 hours time difference away. How are we gonna do this? Blah blah blah. And then obviously she was worried about me being black in China.
Right.
But then look, I was lucky enough that my parents came with and my brother came with me for the first time. So they really saw like the real China and they're like, okay, yeah, I'm comfortable with you staying here. All right, see you. So I that really like cemented my decision
Yeah.
because I didn't want to be too far away from them,
Yeah.
you know? And
Yeah.
recently my dad had a very major health scare and
Okay.
it was like, oof,
How is he doing?
yeah, like I'm far, and
Yeah.
especially with COVID restrictions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But
Is he doing better?
yeah, yeah, he's doing better now. Thank God. So yeah, just yeah. But no, honestly, I think the major thing that was in the back of my mind was just, I have aging parents. Do I really want to do this? Do I really want to be so far? But they gave me their blessing. I think it would have still come if I didn't have their blessing, but don't tell them that. But yeah, that for me was, yeah, I think I needed that. I needed that,
Yeah.
honestly,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. And maybe it's a temporary time, but it's
Yeah, for sure.
a gift that you've given to yourself that nobody can take away, nobody else can claim credit for. Um,
Yeah,
and I would imagine that whenever you do make the decision to repatriate, go back home or go wherever else in the world you want to go, this is always something that you can remind yourself of. No, whenever you are facing something difficult, if I can make this happen and thrive, there's nothing ahead of you that you can't get through.
if I can live in Wuhan, do
Listen,
anything.
oh, I'm not even gonna talk about Beijing. Yes, Wuhan, when everything popped off.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Uh,
Well, we are nearing our interview, Jevon. This has been so much fun, and I'm gonna
time
say
has
that
flown by.
your interview and how in depth that we've gotten with the whole mental health aspect has been one of the most in depth conversations that I've had
No,
in the aspect of having like family and parental support and exposure
yeah,
from a young
yeah,
age. To mental health support and positive attitudes about it, or at least from certain people, right? Because everybody's attitude
yeah,
don't matter. It's only certain
yeah.
people's, perspectives that matter. And let me ask you one last question.
Mhm.
To other young Black boys, you know, whether they're straight or queer, what would you say? How would you encourage them to be brave and speak up and seek help?
Like, I think thinking back to um my 16, 18-year-old self, I just needed somebody to affirm to me that nobody's gonna judge you if
Mhm.
you seek help. There's this stigma of us going to therapists, like we only need to go to a therapist if you're diagnosed as schizophrenic
Right.
or like you have like just like various mental health diseases. But and even if you do, there's no shame in that. you know there is no shame in one getting help. There is no shame in, even if you are diagnosed with something, you should not have any shame living with it.
Right.
um what's the worst that can happen if you get help? Like, what is the worst that can happen? So yeah, like, just don't be scared. Take that leap. It is a scary leap, but if you feel like you need to take it, then definitely take it. Nobody's gonna judge you.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for
And even
sharing.
if they do, don't care about their opinions.
Exactly. Their opinions don't put food on your table, clothes on your back, or money in your wallet.
Exactly. So,
Thank you so much. Like, this has been a
thank
very
you for having me.
touching interview, and I'm
Yeah,
so grateful for your transparency. And I know that it's going to help someone. Hopefully, it's helped you. It's definitely helped me. Um, and I
me.
really cannot wait to hear of the great things that the collective does in the coming months, because I have a feeling that that's certainly going to happen. Um,
For sure.
and so, for everyone that's watching, I want to thank you once again for tuning into another episode of the Black Expat Experience. I encourage you to keep taking risks. I encourage you to keep impacting your communities. And most of all, make sure that you make your mental health a priority. You are your best thing, in the words of Toni Morrison. And I'm just asking that you help us spread the message about mental health, breaking stigmas, and showing the world that Black people of the diaspora live and thrive everywhere in the world. We count on you for support. So, with that, I'm going to say thank you and goodbye. And thank you, Jevon.
Thank you.